Good morning, everyone. Hi, I'm Jill, and I'm going to continue with the hands-on session now, which is directly in line with Micha's standard that he just beautifully presented. So I'm really excited to show you how easy it's going to be for us in this hands-on session to put your own data set into this proposed standard of bits. So we will be using an app on eBrains that's just been developed. So I'm excited. This is the first showcase of this newly developed app, and we can do it all together and find out. And it's very much work in progress, so any feedback is welcome. But first, I want to put it into a specific perspective now for our use case, what Micha told us. So it's a team effort, first of all, that I have to mention, that we're very much led by our Google Summer of Code student, Dinara, who is also with us today, and also by people from CodeMart, Lia Domida, and also Professor Marinazzo from University of Ghent. So together we've been mentoring over the last month Dinara, that we developed this nice app, which is now called Sim2Bits. So when you think about it, reproducibility is especially hard in computation and neuroscience. You have often a lot of code, you have often quite complex models, but you still would like people to trust your model. You still would like people to be able to just set it up locally on their computer and find out that the results are actually valid. It's exactly what you have been doing at home that they can do as well, right? You want them to build on your own work, not to do everything again and be stuck for a couple of months reproducing. And on the other hand, maybe before you have been a user and an interested researcher into a paper, and you really wanted to find out in another paper, how did they do it? So you look through the methods section, they maybe shared their code. So you look through the code, you look through the comments of the code, and that's all a great effort already. But maybe you were missing the right input data, or maybe you were struggling to find out what's the setting for this or that parameter. And basically the standard that Micha is proposing is solving all that and bringing it all nicely packaged together, so you don't have to worry about. But if you fulfill all the required files, and you will have that for your data set and your study, you can be sure it's going to be reproducible. And that's the nice thing about it. So when I think about simulation, now we're going to focus on the simulation using the virtual brain, but in your head, go to any simulator. You're gonna know, and you wanna know, what's the input to the simulation, what are the details of the simulation, and what's the output from it. That's how I categorize it, at least in my head. So I put everything there now for our TVB simulation. As an input to a TVB simulation, it's the weights, that is the connectome weights, you're gonna need them. The simulation is based on them. And the track lengths, which will be called in the standard distances. Then often you have an empirical functional connectivity matrix for the subject. You have a structural connectivity and a functional one. And then you will have labels for all the regions that you used, and you will have centers of these regions in 3D coordinates, which in the standard will be called nodes. And then for the details of the simulation, you have your code, of course, but you also have the specific model equation of the dynamic model that you're using. And you will have all the parameter settings, and maybe even multiple parameters, because you did parameter explorations, optimization. And you will also need the times. So how long did you simulate? What were the time steps of your simulation? And then to be fully reproducible, you also want your user to be able to see the output from your simulation, to see and plot all the simulated time series for all the different parameters. And then also maybe in this case, you have a simulated functional connectivity matrix that is based on your time series. All right, so let's put it in the folders that Micha suggested, and here we go. So most of the folders I find very intuitive. Code is in the folder code, yeah, equations, EQ, param, then net for network. Then you have spatial information where we put the functional connectivity matrix, something spatially, all the pairwise connections. And you have TS for time series, and coord for coordinates of times, labels, and nodes here. So which of this data is individual? You always have to think about this for your study, because you will make it a different hierarchy folder structure. Bear with me for a second there. So this in our case is individual data. You have an individual connectome in the study, you have an individual functional connectivity matrix, and therefore you're going to have individual simulated time series. So actually the code is use the same code for all subjects. Model equations and labels are also the same over all subjects. So make that distinction always. And now we're going to go directly into the hands-on. And in order to have a minimal data set, because of privacy reasons and so on, we're just going to use the default connectivity of TVB, and we're going to generate our minimal bits data set on our own on eBrains. So you will have it directly. We will do as if we have a small study that we are performing on eBrains, and then we will have all the files for that study, and we're going to put it via the app. We're going to put it in the bit standard. And in case you don't have an eBrains account, don't worry. I will paste again this link in the chat. Give me a second. Here we go. So you can also, if you're not an eBrains user, you can download now everything from the drive of our Colab. And there are also all the slides, and the slides contain like a step-by-step manual that I'm going to go through now. So you can also do it later on your own. Okay, so if you go to that link, you are on the drive, and you can also log in with your eBrains credentials. But you can also download directly here the slides, or you can download directly. This is all the data of our small study, and the data put into the bit standard of that study, already prepared for you, and directly have a look at it locally. But to make it more exciting, we're gonna generate it ourselves and then put it into the standard with the app. So what we're gonna do here, and you all would have to do that, is because we are now on the drive of the Colab that's usable for everyone, all your changes that you make when you open the notebook here are not saved. So you need to move this notebook to your own library. It's easy to do that. You just click on this little arrow going down next to the notebook we're going to use, and you will make a copy, and it will show you locations. You click on Other Libraries, My Library, and you submit it. I already did it, so I don't have to do it again, but could do it again. So then the notebook is in your library, and anything you do to this notebook, all the changes will be saved. So then you want to open the Jupyter Lab environment of eBrains that Petra told you about already. So one way to do this is to just go lab.ebrains.eu, or if you're on this drive, you go to lab, and then you can directly select which supercomputing center is maybe closest to you or you prefer, or you can click on here, open in lab, and it will open directly this lab environment. It's probably looking a bit like this. In your lab environment, you will probably be here on the folder structure. You will go to Drive, My Libraries, My Library. And then you should be with me, and there should be now the notebook. If not, just follow again. It's also step-by-step with screenshots on the slides that you have the notebook in your library. First step, great. So now let's start and run this notebook step by step, and I will explain what we're doing. So I'm just to be sure restarting the kernel, so everything's gone from before. You don't have to do it, but I this morning, of course, ran this notebook already. Okay, we first gonna install TVB data because we're gonna use the TVB default connectivity data of a human monkey brain, basically, and then the TVB library. And here is the new app, Sim2Bits. And for now, please use the version 1.01. And then we just need some prerequisites here. And now the notebook you might recognize. If you've ever done a tutorial with the virtual brain, this is the region simulation tutorial of the virtual brain. It's one of the first things you're gonna see when you're starting to use the virtual brain. We are going to run a very simple standard simulation of the virtual brain together. It's all, I left all the comments here, so it's all nicely explained what it is step by step. So first, the setup. Okay, let's just run it. And we set our TVB version. It's the newest version 2.6, by the way, just to have it for later. Then we're gonna have a model. We have to choose a model that's inside TVB. And here we choose the generic 2D oscillator. It's one of the simplest models, I'd say, inside TVB that we're gonna use today. And to run TVB, you always need a connectivity, as I said. And we're gonna use this connectivity 76. And that's just means 76 regions. It's the default connectivity. It comes directly inside TVB. It's publicly available. And all this does here is that we will not going to use anything like areas or orientations and that stuff. It's just for surface simulations, and we're going to do a simple region simulation. So we're only using the weights, the track lengths, and the centers of this default connectivity. All right. Then we need to choose a coupling, and we just choose linear coupling with a certain factor here for global coupling. Then that couples all the models of all the regions together. So we have one large network that's producing dynamics. And we need to integrate. These are differential equations. So of course we need to determine how we're going to solve and integrate these differential equations. Then we're going to monitor our simulation. And monitor is a TVB specific word, I'd say. It just tells you what to watch during the simulation when now you are having all these time steps of the simulator. And for that, we're going to have multiple monitors. We will monitor the raw neural time series and make a small temporal average over this neural time series. And we also going to monitor the bold signal. So out of a TVB simulation, you can directly get a bold time series, like if you are in an MRI and doing fMRI. And then we're going to configure our simulator. Now we put everything together in there, our connectivity that we determined, our model, our coupling, our integrator, our monitor. So TVB simulator needs all of these inputs. And now we run the simulation. So you can just together with me execute all those cells. And we run the simulation just like this with a simulation length of 2 to the power of 10, so around 4,000 milliseconds. Taking a moment. And this is now, even though you see it locally in the browser, it's run with a supercomputing backend, so it should be rather fast. And writing the data into times and data vectors. Okay, it took like 22 seconds, nice. Let's take a look at the results. What did we do here? We just make them NumPy arrays to then plot them. And this is hopefully the result of your first TVB simulation of the day or ever. This is how it should look like. It's the neural time series raw. And then we have some temporal average. All right, we have a huge transient. I hear quite some noise. Is there an urgent question? Otherwise, please mute yourself. All right, there will be time for questions, don't worry. And this is a bold signal. It looks quite weird. It's a rather short simulation for bold. I tweaked it a bit so we have any bold, but normally, of course, you can see already it still has some kind of transient going on. We would have to go to a much longer simulation to have meaningful bold. This is just for demo purposes. All right, so we have a simulation. We have our results. It's like our mini study that we have done. And now we, on top of that, will calculate the functional connectivity matrix just by doing the correlation coefficients of our bold signal between all region pairs. And you will recognize this probably, it's like a matrix, right? So it's giving you all the correlations. It's supposed to be now our demo functional connectivity matrix that we maybe use for our study. So now you have done your study. You have done a virtual brain simulation. You have output, you have results. So let's say you published it, and now somebody is approaching you and saying, I want to reproduce your study. So we're going to make sure that somebody is able to do so very easily. So of that, first step is, of course, to save everything, all the results of your simulation, and to save your code. And in our case, we're going to save this Jupyter notebook as a Python file to make it a bit more accessible for everyone. Don't have to, by the way, but that's how we do it today. All right, and now we prepared this for you, so you can just plug it underneath any of your simulations. If you have similar namings here, time, bold, and so on, plug it underneath, it saves everything. And now we're going to start the conversion because we have successfully generated a folder that should appear on the left here. It's called connectivity_76. It should contain all our data, all the info one would need to reproduce. So we have times for the bold, we have centers, distances, we have a functional connectivity matrix, everything is saved here. And then we're going to go back here, yeah. And we're going to start the conversion because everything is saved nicely, but now we want to put it into the standards to have the same as everybody else in our community to make it very easy for people to use and that they recognize those files directly. So let's start the conversions. We need to import a couple of things. All right, and now we're gonna start the app. And it's going to open here. It's an inline version of the app. It's gonna open here as like a graphical user interface to make it even easier for you to now click on everything and find everything. So in case you have some viewing issues and some things are written over each other or something, just happened to me this morning, you just can refresh your site either here, right, or completely, or you can restart the kernel and try it again. It should look like this for you. If not, restart a little bit, restart the kernel, maybe just execute the last 2 cells that are executed. All right, so we provide here we provide here an output path. We provide a short description of our data set. It's all set to default now. And now we're gonna have, here's a nice welcome message. So you can do a couple of things here and explore the app by yourself. I would just point to a couple of things. So the main thing you would have to do now is select the folder Connectivity76, which includes everything of your study, and then put it to the right side and click on Generate Files. It's as easy as this, okay? Select the folder where your data is, in our case, Connectivity76, and click on Generate Files. All right, so if we do that, it tells me, okay, your output folder is already full. Yeah, because I did it already. It will just overwrite the files here. And now I will go up to show you one thing that we already put in here. You can specify in the app now different things that it might not know from your files. For example, the software version of TVB, it might not know. So we specify it directly here, 2.6, which will be written directly in the JSON files of your app, of your new data set. And the software repository, we, for example, give the release tag here of the TVB 2.6 version, and we give the software name. So all these things are required, and you can give them either here directly in code version, or you might want to give them just by typing into the GUI, where you then click on view results on your JSON files. Yes. We'll give you all the JSON files, and you might want to say, oh, okay, I've seen here, okay, for example, the software version 2.6, but I'm not so happy. I checked again, it's actually 2.2. So you can just click in here and click on update JSON file. It's wrong in this case, so let's not do it. And you might have to go back and forth, so it will not update directly on the left-hand side of your view. So you might have to do something like this, go to another file and go back again, and then it should be there, just as a reminder. So it's work in progress. We're still working on it, that everything comes up directly, but for now, it's one step in between. You also have your TSV file that you can have a look at directly. Ta-da, there are many. And these are for example, here, it's the time series that you can already check and see, this is how he's going to write it. Okay, cool, nice, okay. So you can explore the files here and maybe adjust them a little bit manually if needed. There's also a tab here on pre-processing the data. I don't know why it's empty for me, wasn't this morning. Anyways, it tells you a little bit about how to prepare your data. For you, it should not look like this, but there should be text. how to tell you a little bit how to prepare your data to be able to be used with this app. There are little prerequisites so far. We have tried a few data sets already, but we are very much relying on community input there as well. So if you have used the app with your data set and you have come across, oh, but I always store my files as text files and or something else that we didn't consider. Of course, we have considered text files, but then you just please contact us. On the slides there are also the contact details, or just directly write an email to Petra, or now let's discuss in a few moments. And you can also click on the user guide here, and actually that's explaining you a little bit the app. I again hear noise. Is there a question? All right. So it's explaining you the app. It's about, for example, the bits extension proposal here that Micha explained is all inside the app. If you want to check something and you're like, oh my God, I forgot, is that a required file or is that a voluntary thing that I have to do? You just check in the app on the user guide and then the bits extension proposal. All right, so we generated the files, and we can also, I forgot to mention this, show the structure that's going to generate before we generate even. And this is this is how the structure will look like. See and maybe recognize from Micha's talk a bit on the questions. Oh, nice. Yeah, it's. I also think Dinara has done really great work here. She is also very concerned about the visualization, so it looks appealing, which not so many researchers often do. But if you're coming as a software developer, this is a great thing to take care of. So you see and recognize the files that Micha has mentioned that are required for reproducibility, labels and stuff. So you can check beforehand. And even so, it's especially nice if you have a large data set and you're like, okay, I want to check before it generates all these files on my computer or on eBrains, and I want to check if everything is going right. Okay, then you can check everything. Okay, but you don't have to do all that. If you just run the cell and you say connectivity to the right, generate files, then it's already done. Your files are there. Your files are in bits. It's super fast and it's super nice here. So your files should be there, and they should be in the folder output. And you can see they're not only there below, but they're already here in the eBrains folder structure. And we can click on them here and check them. Oh, we have a JSON file for the code. Aha, it used every input that we gave it. It points to the right equation, and it even has a default description that you can also change via the viewer. All right. So first showcase of this app, very exciting. And I'm curious to also hear in the chat if it's working for you, if everything is looking fine for you. Otherwise, please restart your kernel, try it again. And yeah, for example, you may recognize these files as well, participants to TSV. We just put an NA because we don't have info on that, but we have the subject ID, starts with 1, of course, if you're just one subject. So you generate your own TDB study results, you save them, and you generated the bits files. Now we're gonna also save them as a zip file because then it's maybe easier. So we put this, it may be easier for you to download them from your library. You can just right click and say, oh, I want to download and inspect this outside of eBrains and I want to see how it goes. All right, so that's it already for the eBrains part. Now everything is also prepared for you to run it locally in case you don't have an eBrains account. Then please just download from our drive. I'll showcase that shortly. You're gonna download where there are 2 that are looking quite, okay, sorry. Okay, my mistake, it's Python file and IPython notebook. Okay, so take the Jupyter notebook and then download it. Oh, here, that's a download tab. And I already did so. Then start via your terminal, your Jupyter notebook. And then, now my zoom bar is in the way of this, so I'm gonna lower it a bit. Okay, so If you start your Jupyter notebook, for example, I put it on my desktop and you start it locally, it's gonna look the same and you're gonna execute all the cells. Let's do restart and run all. Just as I just did on eBrains, same thing can happen locally. And now the only thing that you can change to have an even nicer view of the app locally is when you change this one line down here, which was before main area.view servable, which is the inline view of the app. And this is also in the slides. You can also now type it on the flow. pn.serve main area view is giving you an even better view of the app that we're gonna see popping up in a second. Ta-da, you've seen it just pops up. If I do this line of code, and I'm gonna just paste this line of code for you also in the chat, it's also in the slides, so you have it, don't worry. And then it's popping up as a browser view, the app. It's a bit bigger, you can see it nicer, explore things, and you can do the same thing. You can select your folder again that we've just generated locally, put it to the right, click on generate files, and you're gonna get all your files on the same level in a folder called output. So you have also seen that everything is called default now. That's the default. If your project has another name, like a schizophrenia project or whatever, or Berlin dataset, then you put it there and all the files will directly then be generated with the right tag. All right, so let's have maybe one closer look for the last couple of minutes at the files that we just had. And for that, I'm gonna make this bigger, yeah. So we have done our study. So in Connectivity 76, that could be a folder on your local computer as well now that you can load, which are the study results that you have, which is all your code and information that the user would need. And we have all the files there here, in this case, in text files and a Python file. So if we are opening this, you can see, right, simple text files, for example. So if you have, for example, your results in MATLAB, we've also incorporated in the app that you can use that as well. But best is actually if you just extract out of your MATLAB file everything in text files, it's making it easier for the app to recognize. And then we have the folder output, which is the bits standard now. So we have changes folder. Okay, no big deal there. Let's see if I can do. Yeah, great to have it even nicer. So we have a code file, the JSON file directly generated. I showed that one already. Maybe let's have a look at the subject level. We have in spatial, we have the functional connectivity of the subject here, written as the tab separate verify, and also directly generated this nice JSON file accompanying it, and where it directly calculated. We haven't given that info, right? It calculated, we have 76 rows, we have 76 columns. It's for our 76 regions. And the coordinates of rows and columns, what Micha said, what's necessary to identify this file, it already found, okay, I have 76, these are the labels. So we point to the labels, these are the regions, and the regions have labels. The regions have center coordinates called nodes, etc., etc. Small description, which is standard in this case. I showed you how to change it. And then we have a model equation. It's pointing automatically there. So you all don't have to worry about this part. It's automatically done by the app. Just pretty amazing if you ask me. And it saves the researcher a lot of time. So it's as simple as selecting the folder where your data is stored, putting it to the right, clicking on generate files. You should have everything that's needed for reproducibility. Of course, the app, if something is missing, will also give you the errors. And yeah, now let's go back to the slides for a second. I showed you all this, but you can go through it as well. And there's also a small video in the slides that helps you to redo everything. All right, then we have, yeah. So as I said, we are very much relying now on community input after now showcasing the app. And please contact us with anything that you might have noticed, problems or specific requests for your data set, because we have extended this Google Summer of Code project, going a little longer to make it even more general. All right, so in the app, in the slides, you find even links to more detailed app presentations, where you can also find out what's behind this app, how is it working. All the code of the app is on GitHub, and you can have a look at it and also create issues there if you find anything or help us work with it. All right, I've shown you all this. So the last thing I want to tell you, all right, is that here, that's a slide I screenshotted from Leah, which is also to show you that once you have your data set in bits stored in this standard, it's as simple as these 2 lines inside TVB to then reload it inside TVB and then again redo the simulation there. So that's already implemented inside TVB if you have imported the bits importer and bits importer model. And then you just specify the path to your zip file of the bits demo data set, and it's gonna upload and you can launch your simulation with that. So now I showed you basically how the output of a TVB simulation can be put into this bit standard, and it's on eBrains, and you can just copy paste to your own notebook. And also this is the way how to redo it. If you have gotten from somebody else's bits standard data and you want to redo it.
Jill, just one remark. I clicked the links for the additional information on the PowerPoint and there was no link connected. Maybe you can.
Right. Maybe we can. Yeah, maybe in the chat. Dinara, can you put directly the link? Or should I do it? Good point, Petra, thanks. I might have.
I'll add it in a second.
Yeah, great. Because we have there an extensive other presentation where you might want to know how exactly the app works. Okay, last remark from my side, that you please contact us with any issues. Just write an email to Petra or go directly on GitHub if it's more an issue thing that we can solve just with adjusting the code. And it's work in progress, so exciting what's there to come. And yeah, would be great to receive feedback from your side now or answer any questions. Thank you very much.